at that point in my life, it was highly judgmental of me to say that someone's messy because they had a child, or messy because they're doing. But that's what I thought.
Hi, friends.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode.
What's going on, B?
Uh,
Quick catch up.
you know, let me just tell you, that show you told me to watch, American Prime, Evil Prime, whatever the name,
Yeah.
it was so good. And the
When-
guy, he
Yeah.
was so handsome. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I don't know his name,
I don't know
but
his name either, but who cares? It's just the body. The body was body eyeing.
but yeah, he's actually really good in those types of movies. There's another one that I told you, Trisha, it's been out a while. I don't know if you have watched it yet. The Terminal List.
I wrote it down. Remember, I wrote
Okay.
it down. It's next on my list
Okay.
to check out.
Yeah.
Anything that he's in, I would like to see it.
He's
but
in that one too.
He's at it.
He's in that one too. That movie, that series actually is like, I hope they come
Oh, it's
up
a
with
series.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can watch it in like a weekend or like 2 nights. But it's that good that you don't want to.
Oh my
turn it.
gosh.
But
Okay. I mean,
anyway, shall we dive in?
yes, let's. I guess we're continuing our discussions on relationships, and
Okay.
we're gonna keep it like relationship centric.
I was about to say we didn't talk about relationships. Well, we kind of did.
We kind of did.
This is another topic that is sort of centered around relationships and ideals or ideas that we've had in our younger years about relationships that we no longer subscribe to, or that we no longer subscribe to, I would say.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna go through 5. So I think we
Yeah.
should do 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1.
Okay, go ahead, girl.
You want me to start?
Look, you started last time.
I did not. Did I?
No, I started last time, so
Oh,
you're
okay.
starting this time.
Okay, so in no particular order,
Okay.
I'm gonna give some of them. I feel like I need to kind of give like a backstory on. So really quickly, the first one on my list, and again, it's not in order of priority, is dating below my socioeconomic status. And the reason why that is on there is so I think I've always held a value, so this idea that because I grew up in what would be considered like the lower socioeconomic status, I never wanted to judge anybody based on that. Because I feel like, once I started to go to prep school and high school, people would often judge me based on, where I'm from or where my parents are from or how I grew up and all that other stuff. And I always deemed that to be, just not fair.
Yeah.
And I know tons of decent people, even more so than people who came from very fruitful economic means. I knew a lot more decent and nice and kind folks from my own circle, born and bred in the Garrison. And so I never wanted to be absolute in terms of judging people or deciding whether or not to be around or having my circle or date anyone who was from that background. However, having this viewpoint now, or setting this as a standard now, is not a reflection of me saying, well, I'm disregarding or putting any type of judgment on people from that background. It is just, in my experience, I feel like for women in particular, I think there's an added level of difficulty when women, from my experience, I can't speak generally, but if ever I'm in a situation where I am making more money than the person that I am dating, it's just, it broods insecurity and, just problems that I don't necessarily need. And then when I think about just the lifestyle that I want to live and the things that I want to be exposed to, it'll just be more difficult to do that with someone who isn't at the same level as me, if that makes sense.
I mean, to me, 100%. 100%. You will get no pushback from me about that. I 100% agree. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I agree 100%. And I think that there are some times that, you have to think about the rooms that you are in and the rooms you want to be in. And it is, unfortunately, a disservice sometimes to certain people to place them in those rooms where they're highly uncomfortable and they feel like, I don't know, you brought them there thinking, I'm going to show you my world. And then because they feel uncomfortable, they take it the wrong way. And it just like has all these, like, it just goes downhill.
Yeah, I think my number one experience with that is just it brings up too much insecurity on the other person's part, too much of their insecurities, and I just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I also think that men have been generally socialized to think that they should be the breadwinner, right? And so it is difficult for them to be in a situation where they're not, because they may take it as a challenge of their masculinity when that's not the case, right? Yeah. I can make more money than you, and you are still a man in all the other ways that you can be a man. I think even when you and that person are on the same socioeconomic level, I do still think that there are men that feel that it is the masculine thing to do for them to take care of you. And if you reject that, even though you're on their level and they're on yours, they don't take kindly to it. I've heard conversations of men they're just like, I want to be the provider and I don't want you to pay for things or to feel like you're independent of me. And for me, we're in a new world. And while that is a walk of life, that's for some women, do you, boo-boo. It's not for everybody. And so if you're going to be with a modern woman, I would say, then it's probably going to behoove you to get more comfortable with relationships that are a partnership. My first one, again, not in any particular order, but it's the first thing I thought about when we decided to have this discussion. And for me, I'm letting go of ruling out partners based on their past experience. And I say that to say, when I was younger, if you are a man who has been divorced or if you have had a child, I cancel you right away. And I think in maturity, I have stepped back on that significantly, because I used to think if you're messy, you're messy. If you're divorced, if you've had a child, you're messy. You're messy. And I never considered that there are men who could be widowers. I never considered that there could be men who were in relationships that were completely not for them. And for the benefit of their child and for themselves, that they remove themselves from that relationship. I never considered any of those things. I was just like, you're messy. You're not for me. I don't want to hear about it. And so I have definitely changed course, and I'm no longer like that. I'm not saying I'm going out to look for a divorced man or a man with a child, but I'm definitely more empathetic to their position and more open to how you got there and understanding their journey before passing judgment.
I think also it'll be being older now. It'd be a little bit more challenging to find somebody without a past. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And, I mean, yeah.
Right? And it's kind of like, if you already have a kid, I don't have to have it. You already had a kid. Not that I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, you had a baby already. Go ahead. You're a dad already, so you do it, sir.
With age,
Yeah, that was the first thing that because I remember how I used to be. Like, I cancel you.
I remember as well. But I think there's stark differences in how we view the world just based on how we've each grown up. And so things that was just everyday reality for me that I didn't necessarily, because, it's just life. Life happens. You have very, very different viewpoints on those things. Well, I think it's just how we grew up,
Yeah.
And
but I'm definitely more open now, and more open to, again, I think at that point in my life, it was highly judgmental of me to say that someone's messy because they had a child, or messy because they're doing, but that's what I thought. I could tell you 25-year-old me was like, you're messy. You're messy.
I didn't realize or didn't know or didn't ask that that's where that came from. I thought you were just, I didn't know about, like, I've definitely heard you say multiple times about the not being interested in someone if they have an offspring, but I didn't know the root of it was that you thought that the person was, involved in some it's drama and toxicity and all that.
Yeah, I was thought there were two things that I was concerned about. As a very young woman, I was like, well, I don't want to go out with a man who's already experienced having a child with somebody else. I wanted him to have the first experience of having a child with me if we were gonna have children.
Fairy tale.
It's not a fairy tale.
But go ahead, it's your fairy tale.
So that was the first thing. And when I first thought about it, I was like, no, like we should have together. I want it to be the first time for us both, not thinking that it was possible that the first time with you is the first time with you in general. You know what I'm saying? And then I was like, no, I'm not into baby mama drama. I stay away from drama because, it gets very unethical very, very quickly for me. So I avoid drama. If you've ever heard that thing, I don't know if you ever have. There's a woman on social media. She says, I avoid drama because it gets very unethical. It goes from 0 to prison. And I'm like, yes, bitch.
But not every man that has a child has trauma.
True. Yeah. And so I would say the evolution has happened where I have become very aware of that. Not that I've had experiences dating men with children, but in just meeting different people and people who are at different levels of maturity and phases in their life. Like there are grown men and even not so grown men who made mistakes as a child or whatever, or they were married really young or whatever it might be. And they have now found themselves with children or one child, or they're divorced. And my very harsh judgment does not apply.
Got it. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear from me too, Hanny.
I will give you my next one, which kind of has a little bit to do with your ideal. So my next one would be dating someone who has more than one offspring. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I've never held any judgment towards anyone who's had a kid. Like that would not have been a deal breaker for me in the past. But I remember my dad, before he passed away, told me not to date anybody who has kids. And this is coming from someone who has multiple kids and not all of them with the same partner. So, and then he said to me, we were having a little back and forth, and I'm like, yeah, well, that stuff it doesn't really bother me. And he said to me, well, if you have to, they should not have more than one child. So let that be your cutoff.
Okay.
Obviously never take heed. But I think now, having gone through life a little bit more and experienced a little bit more, I understand better why he made that point. I think it just gets a little bit dicey with your time, right? And with trying to prioritize. With children in general, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't matter. That's that's always going to be a little bit more delicate to
navigate.
to
Of
navigate
course,
it,
children are
right?
time consuming. So if
Yeah.
somebody has like, 2 or
More
3
than one.
children,
Yeah, more
and
than
then
one. Like one is beyond, let alone 2, 3.
perfect.
That's just, yeah. That's just, it's too much. If you're really trying to, I'm not saying people make it work all the time, of course, obviously.
Are some people with a
Yeah,
Brady Bunch family and it
yeah.
worked out for them.
But it's not going to work out for me. And that's what I've come to realize, just with more time and more experience in life. It's too much of a headache that I'm just not willing to deal with.
Look, I'm not searching for that person, but I'm more open to them than I used to be. Let's put it like that.
So you say.
I am. I really am.
What's your next song? But I'm not arguing.
Okay, so this one, I already know what you're going to say when I say this. I thought of you as I was writing this down.
Did you?
Yes. And let me preface this by saying that I think that people should not be afraid to express a particular like for certain characteristics. However, they should not make it, okay, your face. They should not make it something that, just causes them to not have good expectations. So I used to be overly rigid about physical or character requirements. And I think that I am no longer as rigid as I used to be. In fact, I found a journal that I had many years ago where I wrote down my man and I said he was required to be 6'10" or taller. And I'm like, baby, what am I doing with a 6'10" dude?
Have you seen someone who's 6'10" in
Yes,
real life?
I knew people at the time that were 6'10". Yes. And today, like having found that today, I'm like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. Cool for real.
And I've relaxed that significantly. But while saying that, recognizing that what it is that I like tallness as a characteristic or a feature of a man. Does it mean that he should be 6'10"? No, ma'am. I mean, for 6'10", like, you can still call me, but but it's not, I'm no longer walking around going, you're not 6'10", so I can't see you. Like, I'm not like that. Whereas before, I was like, oh no, if you're not close to that 6'10" number, I don't know where I got that from, because again, I've never dated anyone 6'10". Never. The tallest person that I've dated was probably like 6'3". I don't know where I got that number. So recognizing that I can have an appreciation for a tall man, but not create an unrealistic expectation for the types of men that I would date going forward, I've come a long way.
Yeah, I don't know when you came to this realization, because as of last week, you that spit the same nonsense. But
no, I never said
yeah.
6'10". I'm not saying that. See, and this is where we disagree, because I don't think it's nonsense to say I have a preference for tall men. I don't. I think
no, I don't think that's what I don't think that you're thinking that in the past, this is what you're saying. I have a preference for tall men. You were being ridiculous with your choices, because the person wasn't over 6 feet for someone who is under 5 feet.
I'm not under 5 feet. I don't know. I don't know who that is. I'm not under 5 feet at all. I don't know who that is. She's not here. Who is she? No, ma'am.
Madness.
Well, I do recognize that I love tall guys.
You can. Nobody knocks you.
You know what I mean? But I don't have. It doesn't have to be the tallest of the tallest of the tallest. And so, just having those very rigid requirements, and also feeling like you need to. I don't think I've ever really truly had a full on checklist, but I just think I just reject that in general. I think that there are things you can like and be like, I have a preference for A, B, C, D, E, F, G things, but I don't have a checklist.
Except the height thing.
I don't think that's a checklist. I think that
No, I'm telling you,
that I like. I know I like it.
Yes, I hear what you're saying now. What I've seen from knowing you for I don't know how many years it's been is that
I love a tall man.
it was a checklist. That in particular was on your checklist.
100%, I would say. Like I said, I had a rigid...
Now you're talking about preference and not being rigid and using those types of words. But that was definitely on your checklist before, because people who did not meet that requirement didn't stand a chance. Yeah. So
to be clear,
keep it above.
Clear, audience, to be clear, because that makes it seem like I've never dated a shorter man. I have. I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
Moving on.
So, in the spirit of talking about characteristics and sort of, the next on my list would me being open to dating outside of my own ethnicity.
Okay.
/ race.
Okay.
It was my preference to date people that were of the same ethnic background, just because it was easier. That was my comfort zone, and I never necessarily thought about dating outside of that. And this one has a bit of a question mark next to it, because I just think that with the times that we're currently living in, gives me reason for pause in wanting to even
be open.
Yeah.
Interesting.
However, it's still on there. It still made it on on the list. I
think that at the end of the day, if somebody outside of your ethnicity, outside of your race, whatever, I've always said, I'm open to dating whoever in that regard, as long as they meet one requirement. And that one requirement for me is that they're open-minded. Because if you're not open-minded and ready to accept the fact that, first of all, we are immigrants to this country, which means that when you meet my family, you're going to meet culture that's completely opposite to anything that you have probably ever encountered before. And so I'm open to dating whoever, but that person also needs to be open to dating me and everything that comes with me. And they need to be able to make the people around me feel respected and comfortable, because I'm going to do the same thing for you, because you're a new culture for me too. I might be a little bit more evolved, or much more evolved than my parents and some other people in my family. So it may not seem like a big deal, but it's still a new culture. And if I've been able to adapt to your situation and it feels seamless, then I expect you to afford me and my family the same respect. If you could do that, we're cool. Otherwise, I cancel you.
I would imagine that the other person would have to be open to even entertain the idea of dating. That has to
You know what, though? The only reason I would disagree with that is that I think that there are some men who are interested in dating exotic women. And so they think of you more as a fetish. And so they're interested in seeing what it's like, but they're not really. And some of them are very good at pretending like there's true interest, when really they're morally like fetishizing you and wanting to be with someone like you or what you represent. So it's possible that, they could pretend, like there's a pretense of being open when there is not
true openness. Yeah, I think you can suss that out though, in my opinion. But yeah, so that was the next one on my list. Just, a little bit of a question mark, open to other ethnicities and races.
I like everybody, honey.
Good for you.
The next one for me is probably a little spicy for me. For me it was. But it's definitely something that I released. I actually released it a long time ago, but and it is harsh judgment on infidelity. While I don't stand for infidelity, I used to believe that people who were in relationships where there was infidelity or they like that you don't have any morals. And I've been in that situation.
So I'm sorry, to be clear, are you saying that people who stay in relationships where infidelity has occurred don't have morals?
No.
Okay.
So let's say you're dating somebody who's married, or they have a boyfriend, or if you're into girls, they have a girlfriend or whatever. I used to think that if that was you, that your morals are compromised. Something ain't right about you. And I realized in my own experience, because I've experienced that myself, that that's not necessarily always the case. Because, and it took me actually experiencing that myself to come to the realization that it could be more. And
like
for
more
me,
to the story.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
because
things
it was
aren't always that reductive as in your daily.
It's not, it's never that black and white.
Yeah.
But prior to that experience, I never thought that. And for me, that relationship was the most confusing, frustrating relationship I'd ever been a part of. Because I had somebody who would be like, you're not allowed to leave me voicemails. And you know me, I'm a defiant bitch. So I left the I left the voicemail. And then having that person being like, yo, my girl fucking heard you and left me a voicemail. Don't, like, I'm not talking to you. And then in the same day, that person called me like, oh, I planned this for us. Like, I'm coming to get you. And I'd be like, I don't understand. Like, this person just said not to talk to them. They're this, that. And I would be so confused about my own feelings and like what to do. And also, I never found out about the fact that there was another person in the relationship until I was deep
in it.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know how to unlike somebody who I've been dating for a while. And now I'm just finding out that I am girl number 2. I am not girl number 1. When I say I had no idea. And it was just so, it was very confusing. And it's not until I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is not healthy. It's never going to go the way that I want it to go. I must remove myself from this situation. And even when I tried to remove myself,
was hard.
It was so difficult, especially because that person continuously reached out to me. Like they didn't want me to move on. They constantly wanted to have their cake and eat it too, which made it very difficult for me to step away. And I never considered that for another person until I experienced it myself. And I experienced the moments of just pure confusion.
Yeah.
Where I was like, today I don't know what to feel. Like, what's happening?
I hear that, B. I think one of the things that I've just let you do you, because it is what it is, but you like to make very definitive statements about what you would do in certain situations, not ever being in those situations.
Agreed.
And so, yeah, me know. Not make up things. I think I'm just pulling this from thin air. I know what I'm talking about. Like, I've witnessed this over the years. So I think for me, how I've decided to handle that where you're concerned is just let you run with whatever you're thinking, because time will definitely teach you otherwise. And so I just let you run with it. But I'm glad you made some adjustments.
I have.
Because life is, life is just
complicated.
Yeah, it is. But let me get to my next one. Okay, so I have to provide some context for this.
I love a context, girl. Go ahead.
I think, if I remember correctly, so a few years back, I was thinking of getting another doctorate. And I'd mentioned it to somebody. I mentioned it to this guy, and he told me nobody's going to want to date me because, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically because I'm doing too much. How I interpreted that. Well, the point that was made was for me to recall how many men, let alone Black men, were in my graduating class for the doctorate that I actually do have, which was kind of a tricky thing to do because the profession that I'm in general is just not really male dominated. So,
Right.
that's why I understood the point that was trying to be made. It was just, hard to apply really to my actual circumstance. But that had me thinking, which kind of ties into the first ideal that I brought up, which was the whole socioeconomic status thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some ways, maybe on a subconscious level, I've always dimmed my light, quote unquote, a little bit so that other people would feel, I guess, comfortable around me. And when
Put some
that
respect on Dr. Bella's name.
But you see, the thing of it is just my personality in general. I don't lead with those things. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just not
True.
That's not really who I am. But just also realizing that sometimes that brings up stuff for people. It's not a thing. It doesn't become any type of a topic of conversation. It's just, yeah. So I feel like in some respects, I tend to dim my light a little bit just so other people can feel comfortable. And yeah, I don't feel like doing that no more. So that's one of the things that I have decided that I need to release. While I'm not brag and boast on anybody about anything that I've achieved, big or small. I think celebrating and highlighting your accomplishments and achievements are a good thing, big or small, especially for somebody like me who, I feel like the odds were stacked against me from birth just because of the circumstances that I grew up in. And to have gotten as far as I have, yeah, that worth celebrating. And
100%.
it's worth shining a light on. And if that make other people feel a way,
everybody, you better put some applause in the comments for Dr. Bella. Put some respect.
Well, you don't have to do that
on Dr. Bella's name. Okay.
Yeah. So that's my fourth one, I think.
Okay. I like that one. Dr. Bella. For me, the next one is, I think that I'm just releasing societal pressures about being single. I think from certain friends, certain family members, they really do think that as a modern single woman, that you should have followed the normal script that they followed of getting married and having babies and all the things. And, and I think for a lot of people, that pressure comes from family as well, because they're like, oh my God, like, where's your baby? Like, where's your man? And I released that because at the end of the day, the fact that I did not follow the normal script just means I'm fly.com, honey. And I don't have to subscribe to what everybody else thinks is the way to go in order for me to feel like I'm valuable. And no, I'm not jealous of whoever is married with children. And no, I don't feel some type of way that I show up to the wedding or to the whatever family gathering and I show up as me. I am enough by myself. And I don't need a man or a child or a situation to be confident in the fact that I'm valuable and enough on my own. So I release that.
Amen to that. I think that, and I can only speak for Caribbean people. Well, correction. I can only speak for Jamaican people since I'm Jamaican.
Okay.
I think culturally there's a lot of pressure on, especially if you are of a certain age and you haven't had a child yet. Less so about the marriage thing, in my experience, and more so about having a child. Is there's this stigma placed, I think, on women who are older and have not had any kids, which I think is absolute ridiculousness, given the fact that half of them people they were asked about Pitney. not helping you one bit
Right?
with anything when it comes to raising the child. You know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily talking about financial, but it takes a village.
Yep.
And
You calling them, I need a babysitter?
yeah, no.
Nobody told you to have
Yeah,
pick me and you
yeah,
can't. I said, okay.
precisely.
Were you not just saying, where's my baby?
Precisely. So you release that. I release it for you. My last one has to do with staying away from men who have traditional ideas of gender roles.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I will not be
I'm
dating anyone.
simpatico. Go ahead, girl.
I will not be dating anybody who are rigid about traditional gender roles and how the perspective that they have on, how men are supposed to show up in a relationship and how women are supposed to show up in a relationship. Yeah, I mean, you spoke about this a little bit in the last pod we recorded. I think for me too, it's really it's it's along those lines, like with the women have to get up and you have to cook and clean and
Oh, my God.
you know do all do everything with the child. And yeah, like, no, I feel like if if you're also working, and even if you weren't, like, slavery done. Ain't nobody
Amen.
just doing all domestic work just every day, all day.
Darling?
That's not, in 2025, that's not
Yep.
gonna
If
work.
you want a maid, you got to go hire one, baby. Because I'm
Yeah.
not it. Sorry.
And I think this kind of, I had mentioned earlier that I had one of my ideals kind of tied into something that you said about the modern woman. You were saying that with partnership and, men being with a man, or men thinking in general that they have to pay for, their role is to pay for everything and to provide and to, no, let
They
me
want
be
to be
clear.
the man of the house.
Yeah. And you can be the man of the house and you can pay for everything if you want to. I am not going to dispute that. Just understand that I can also contribute, right? And just because if you want to get up and pay for everything and you can afford to do that, that's fine. That doesn't mean that then my role is reduced to all the domestic stuff. So if that's your idea, then that will not, that's not going to work. But if you want to pay for everything, I'm not going to fight you on that. And so that's the point I wanted to kind of make in relation to what you said. But yeah, my last one is staying away from men who, have these traditional ideas, very rigid outlook and perspective and traditional ideas about what gender roles are in a relationship. I'm not doing that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't. For me, that is 100% a deal breaker to be with somebody who cannot embrace what it means to be with a modern woman today. I don't understand you. I'm so sorry. If you need a mammy, go and hire one. I am not. I'm not it. I'm never going to be it. My fifth one is, something that I learned about myself with me. So you're going to have to take me or you're going to leave me, which is I release being, I guess, quiet and not expressing myself. I used to, in former relationships, have very strong opinions about things that could possibly be polarizing. And I kept my perspective to myself because I didn't want to create, I guess, discomfort for the guy or to create an argument. And I think as I've gotten older, I released that and I recognize that I am who I am with the opinions that I have. And if you are truly going to be accepting of me, then you're also going to accept the fact that sometimes I have controversial perspectives on things and that I'm going to want to express those perspectives And so to know me and to love me is to accept that I have an opinion and I'm willing and really wanting to express that at one time or another.
Interesting. I would never have imagined you as someone that bites your tongue.
On controversial matters, general things, I wouldn't say that there's anyone that I've dated who would say you don't express yourself at all. But if the conversation got spicy, I might have just not said anything.
Interesting.
I let you speak your speak, and then I'm not going. Now, today, I'm not going to do that.
Fair.
I'll let you know.
All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Is it?
It is. Yeah.
What are some things that you guys are leaving behind? Some ideas, some, relationship perspectives that you're unsubscribing from? Put it in the comments. Let us know. Let us know what you think.
And that's a wrap.
Is it? I'm kidding.
Yes. Until next time. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
We out.